Well, welcome everyone to today's webinar. My name is Matt. I'm the founder of Q4Launch, and we are excited that y'all are joining us for our webinar today, How to Develop Your 2017 Marketing Plan. Had a good run the last few weeks, 3 straight webinars, 3 straight weeks. Lots of content, lots of time. I know many of you have signed up and been joining us for all 3. I know many of you join us for all the webinars we do, and I thank you for being here. It tells me that y'all are learning a lot and that you're committing your time. I know you're all busy, but hopefully you find a lot of meaning and a lot of value out of the webinars and the content that we share. I'm excited to bring this topic to you today. I actually just taught this session live about 2 weeks ago at a conference I was invited to speak at in Wisconsin. So I know some of you are probably attending because you wanted to get a second version of it, to hear it again, to let that set in. But a little bit about us, if you're with us for the first time. I know we have several first-timers with us today as well. We're excited you're here. Q4Launch is a destination marketing company based in Charleston, South Carolina, that works with some of the top destinations, top properties around the world. We have customers from Singapore to Maui and just about everywhere in between, and have had a great time the last 4 years as we've really grown in the travel industry, and as our brand has grown, and as our following has grown, much due to our webinar series and the content we share via our blog. It's been an exciting ride, and excited to share a lot of the things we're learning with you today. Today's going to be pretty high level. If you've been on some of our other webinars over the last few weeks, we've dove really deep on some specific topics. But today we're going to look at more your big picture marketing plan and set the foundation for what's going to carry you into success in 2017. We're going to share some customer stories with you today about actual customers that we're doing with us to try to help you think about, take the principle we're teaching, and then be able to start having the aha moments of how that might apply to your business. So that's what we share with you. That's why we share some of those real-life stories and try to make that connect with you. And we're going to challenge you a little bit throughout our webinar today. Many of you know me. Many of you come up and introduce yourselves at conferences, which I love. I love putting a face behind the names of all the people that attend and follow the series. So thank you for that. But I'm going to challenge you a little bit today because 2017, it could be your best year yet. And I'm believing that for you. But I believe that for you only if you are willing to do what it takes to get there. It doesn't happen by chance. It's not an overnight success story. There are no overnight success stories. It's something that takes diligent work to get where you want to be. And we're going to help you create a plan to be able to do that today. But what we're going to teach you today is going to give you the 20% head knowledge you need to get there, but it's going to take 80% putting your shoulder to the plow to making that happen. And as we go throughout our time together today, as a friend, as a peer in the industry, we're going to call you to the carpet a little bit on some of that and challenge you to take some next steps in your own marketing so that you don't just come to these webinars one after the other after another and not put anything into place. That would break my heart because I put a lot of time and energy into teaching you all what we're learning to try to help you. And for that, we want you to be able to take next steps in your own plan. So if anything, as we head into the holiday season, which is a season a lot of people use to slow down and to put life on hold a little bit, put business on hold a little bit. And while that's important and I want you spending time with your family, I want to challenge you at the same time and say, now's the time to invest into your business. If your business is a little slower this time of year, take that time to invest into your business to position yourself for success in 2017. So that's probably the most time I've ever spent on a title slide. So let's dive in and start getting to some of our content. As we're thinking ahead about 2016, we have to pause and spend time with family, but we also have to pause and spend time reviewing 2016. I know a lot of us spend time doing this, but we have to look in the rearview mirror a little bit and ask ourselves some tough questions, and we're going to get to some of those questions in a minute. But you have to really, what we say, check your business's pulse. You know, we go to the doctor for an annual checkup, an annual physical, but many of us don't really think about that with our business. Is your business healthy? Like, is it performing well? And while I can't talk to everything in your business, and we're just talking about marketing today, much of what we're going to talk about leads to health in every other area of your business. Because if this part of your business is healthy, if your marketing is healthy, that's where most things start. If marketing is healthy, it feeds your sales funnel or your revenue funnel. If your revenue is healthy, your cash flow is healthy, then it makes everything else in your business healthier and easier and more fun to manage. But when that's not going well, it's not very much fun to manage the business that you're in today. So with that, I want you to think about that. I want you to think about the pulse of your business. And we say the pulse of your business What we're really talking about is your Google Analytics, because that's how you're measuring the success of your marketing, or one of the ways you should be measuring the success of your marketing that's consistent across everybody. And when was the last time you really looked at that? And this graph that's on the screen is just meant to be illustrative, but if you looked at it at a daily basis, so you looked at your analytics chart daily, not monthly as this one's filtered, you'd see that little blip in your traffic. And those little blips, to me, look a lot like a heart rate monitor. They look a lot like your pulse for your business. So that's why we try that analogy. And as such, I want you to think about that. I want you to think about the importance of being in your Google Analytics. Because we talk to people day after day after day who are struggling with their marketing, the majority of them that are struggling tell me, I haven't been in my analytics on a regular basis, which tells me they have no idea how it's performing. And if you haven't been in your business, if you haven't been in your analytics on a regular basis, you have no idea how your marketing is performing. And you can't make other decisions that are necessary in your business to be able to figure out where you need to go. So I want to beat that drum pretty hard to challenge you to be in your analytics on a regular basis and commit to that in 2017, but commit to that starting today. Put time on your calendar this week to spend time in your analytics, and we'll offer some resources later on to help you with that if it's an area. But there's some things you need to understand as you're doing that. There's some questions you need to be able to answer. What are your highest performing traffic sources, and how are they performing year over year? You can see a quick screenshot there, but again, it's just illustrative of the idea of you need to understand these things. You need to understand what's working and what's not. You need to understand the role that these things should be playing. Google organic, direct traffic, referral traffic, email, TripAdvisor traffic, or third-party directories, what role do they play? Social media traffic, what role does it play in your overall strategy? And you need to be analyzing those on a regular basis to really figure out what's working for you and what's not. Because the what's not part of that, the what traffic sources are down the most year over year, is just as important, if not more important, than what is working for you. Because what's working for you is the positive side of that, right? It's awesome. And that's the way Google Analytics is set up by default to filter information, is to give you that positive information, that what's working information. We want to learn that because we want to do more of what's working. Absolutely. Awesome. But we also have to understand what's not working. And we have to flip that. We have to flip the way Google Analytics gives us information by default. And we want to look at the sources of traffic that are down the most year over year. Because if traffic is up, that's great. But we know somewhere in your analytics, traffic is down from some source. And you need to understand that as well. Because if traffic is down from that source, that means you've had to make up for that lost traffic via other sources. So it's a really important thing to understand, with the assumption that if traffic is down from that source, most likely, assuming it's a quality source, bookings are down from that source as well. And then should we be concerned, and what do we need to do about it? Creating action steps. You're going to hear us talk a lot about action today, but you need to be able to think about that. You need to be able to create those action steps for your next step to be able to say, okay, what's working, what's not, and what do I need to do about it? But you've got to be in your analytics to be able to figure those things out. And then what pages on your site are serving as landing pages most often? This is so important. I think it's something that a lot of people overlook. And when I say landing page, a lot of people get a little bit lost. And we try not to use technical jargon because we want to make this very reasonable or very attainable for you. But we also try to use the right language because we want you looking for the right words when you're in your analytics looking for this. So landing pages is found by going to the behavior section and then landing pages in that drop down on that left side of your analytics menu. What people would commonly call this is, where do people enter your website? That's what we're looking at when we're looking at landing pages. Where do people enter your website? And if your marketing strategy worked for you in 2016, where people entered your website was probably very different in 2016 than it was in 2017, or excuse me, than it was in 2015. And in 2017, it probably should be different than it is in 2016 because you're investing in other parts of your marketing. You're investing in various strategies to be able to figure out what's working, what's not, and what do you need to change. The other thing we really garner from looking at our landing pages or where people are entering our website is to figure out how people navigate through the site and how we need to design our website accordingly. Because if you've designed your website, be it 2 years ago, be it 4 years ago, however long ago it was, be it 6 months ago, but you haven't gone back to look at how it's performing, you're leaving opportunity on the table. Because a website's not one of those things that's quote-unquote done. You need to be analyzing that and making changes to that on a regular basis to be able to figure out what's working and what's not in your overall website strategy. And we'll talk about that as well. And we're going to talk about blogging here in a minute, but that's one of the things we're going to dive into. But how's your email marketing performing? Are you sending campaigns twice per month? I know that graph's a little bit small there, but if you look at it, you'll see spike after spike after spike. Email marketing can drive traffic like that, unlike anything else. I can pull up somebody's Google Analytics, and if I set the date range out at least 3 months or so, I can tell them pretty much matter of fact the exact days they sent email campaigns in the past year. And I can do that because I just look for the spike. I've seen enough analytics that I know nothing drives spikes in traffic like email marketing does. Yet what we see way too often is that people send a campaign or 2 or 3, it drives that spike, they get calls, they get business, they get bookings, but then they don't do any more. They don't send any more campaigns. They don't think about it as something that needs to be happening on a regular basis. Yet the top brands, the best brands, the Amazons of the world, the Apples of the world, are sending email on a regular basis. And they're really looking at what are people looking for, what are they clicking on, and how do I need to get more content to the right people to drive traffic and ultimately drive revenue. We're going to talk a little bit more in depth about how to execute that. We're just trying to hit some of the high levels of what you should be looking for in your analytics. And then this next question is one that unfortunately has a huge amount of misconception around it. But are travelers discovering your property via your blog? Are they discovering your company via your blog? And a lot of people out there still believe blogging doesn't matter and it doesn't work. And it blows my mind, but unfortunately it's because they don't understand it and they don't know how to execute a strategy well. Because if you execute a strategy well and you're committed to it, travelers discover your property, your company, via your blog. It works no matter what. It has never not worked for us as we've executed it. So data point after data point, case after case after case, it has worked, but it has to be executed properly. I was on the phone with somebody this morning who was struggling with SEO and had hired SEO company after SEO company after SEO company and felt like he got nowhere. And he may even be on this webinar. But as I said to him, I said, of all the things you've heard about and learned about SEO over the last years, what's the #1 thing you need to succeed with SEO? And I just wanted to see if he knew. And he said, you need fresh content that's relevant to your customer. And I said, you've been reading the right books because you're spot on. Fresh content that's relevant to your customer. But when we looked at his blog, he posted 3 blogs in the last 2 years. So he knows what he has to do. He's just not executing it, and he's wondering why he's struggling with SEO. And if you're on the webinar, I'm not trying to call you out. It's just a perfect case study to say that's the key. That's what your blog is supposed to be doing. Your blog is supposed to be serving the purpose of fresh content posted regularly, which keeps it fresh, that's relevant to your user. It's not stuffed with keywords. It has keywords, but it's not stuffed just for the sake of that. It's written well. Everything else is done around that. And when you do that well, people discover you via your blog. When people ask Google the questions they used to ask travel agents, they need to be finding you. You need to be the person that has those answers. And by doing that well, people will enter your website via your blog. And our customers see that 30% of their traffic, after they've been with us about a year, 30% of their traffic enters the website on a blog. And because of that, we work really, really hard at designing our blogs to be very intentional to move people through the site where we want them to go. But most web developers don't understand this. They don't think like marketers. So I would bet 95% of the people on today's webinar or listening to the recording have a very, very poorly designed or not designed at all blog. It's an afterthought for most web developers because they don't understand the significance of it, because they don't think like marketers. They don't understand that 30% of your traffic should be entering your website via your blog. That's not their goal. Their goal is to get a website out the door. So you've got to be thinking about that. You've got to be looking at those landing pages and understanding where do we need to be investing design time. If you're embarking on redesigning a website in 2017, which we just did a webinar on that a few weeks ago, so I encourage you to check that out. But if that's on your list of things to do in 2017, make sure you're working with somebody that understands how to design a website like a marketer, understands how to design the website based on what the customer is looking for, and designing a website that's going to match your marketing strategy. You don't build a website and then figure out your marketing strategy. You figure out your marketing strategy, and then you build a website that supports your marketing goals. Because at the end of the day, it's a marketing goal that you're trying to accomplish. It's not have a pretty website. Like, that's not the goal at the end of the day, or at least it shouldn't be. So you've really got to dive into this and understand and look at your analytics to be able to figure that out. Not only does it need to be designed well, but the URL structure needs to be set up properly so that you can track this easily. And that's another huge mistake we see people making, is they don't use a proper URL structure to be able to set this up in a way that it can be tracked easily in Google Analytics. Got to keep moving here. And we're going to come back to all these and dive a little bit more in depth. But is your social media audience growing? This is so important. We want to see a growth curve in social media that looks like this, because this is the people, this is the audience that you're building. These are the people you have the opportunity to reach. And while this graph is flat at the beginning, it kind of shows our customer's life before us and the customer's life after us. You've got to have a plan to grow your social media following. It doesn't have to be the same plan we use, but it needs to be a plan. You need to be thinking about that, because those are the eyeballs that your brand has an opportunity to reach. Those are the travelers that your brand has an opportunity to reach. And you have to have a plan for reaching those people and growing that audience. And we encourage you to set the goal of growing that at 5 to 10% per month. So we're going to hit on some quick questions we want you to ask yourself. Jot these down and then spend some time. Go to Starbucks or your local coffee shop, or even better, and get a cup of coffee and just reflect on these over the next couple of weeks. And then set about working a plan to be able to execute and answer these questions. How many of you are happy with your bookings and revenue in 2016? Fast forward a year from now, we're spending the same time together, exactly 365 days from now. And I said, how many of us had the exact same 2017 as we did 2016, and how many of us are excited about that? Very few people would raise their hand. Very few people want 2017 to be exactly like 2016 was. Usually we get a couple when I ask that when I'm teaching this live, and that's great. It shows you they had a great year, and I'm excited for those people. But most of us want 2017 to be different. They want it to be better in some way. And to do that, we have to make an investment. Otherwise, we fall into Einstein's definition of insanity, doing the same thing again and again and expecting different results. If you want 2017 to be your best year yet, which I'm believing for you it can be, if you want 2017 to be your best year yet, you have to be willing to do something you've never done. You have to be willing to sacrifice something you've never sacrificed. Because that's when you lean into it a little bit and create breakthrough for yourself, create breakthrough in your company to get to a level you've never been through before. But if you're not willing to make that change, don't even start down the journey. Because if you're not willing to change something, if you're not willing to do something you've never done to get something you've never got, that's probably not proper English. Don't tell my mom or my English teacher, all right? But you've got to lean into that and figure that out and do something you've never done to get something you've never received. That's probably better English there. But hopefully you're with me. You know what I'm saying. And I don't want that for you. I don't want you to fall into Einstein's definition of insanity and fast forward a year from now. A year has passed you by, and maybe you're feeling that way right now. A year has passed you by. 2016 has passed you by, and your business is in the same place it was this time last year. And that's okay. You know, if that's you, pick yourself up and say, I'm going to do something now. I'm going to do something in December of 2016 that's different than something I've ever done before. And that's what you have to do to break through and get different results in 2017. How many of us have set the goal to be less reliant on online travel agents in 2017? I'd see a bunch of hands going up if we were in a room together. Or how many of us want to be less reliant on third-party directories in 2017? This is a big topic in our industry right now, something a lot of people are talking about. But it's really easy to take the lazy route. It's really easy to rely on these people to get your booking or to get a significant portion of your booking. But if we look across the hotel landscape, which is kind of the leaders of the, at least revenue size-wise, the leaders of the industry, a lot of innovation comes from smaller parts of the industry like ours, but they're spending a lot of marketing dollars right now marketing this book direct message. And as such, we see them trying to break their dependency on third parties and online travel agents. We need to follow suit. We need to take a cue and not move that direction. They're heavy that way and trying to move away. We're heavy the other way and trying to stay away. So you've got to be thinking about that and what role it plays in your marketing strategy in 2017. I'm not saying it shouldn't be a part of it. I'm just saying you should probably be working towards being less reliant on it, because I guarantee you as they get more market share and they get more control, they're not going to lower price. That's not the plan. So you've got to be thinking about that and what percentage of revenue are you willing to spend on that. And if we're asking ourselves these tough questions, we have to look at what does it look like? How do we get down this road? And it starts with developing a successful marketing strategy. And some of the questions we need to ask when we're thinking about that is, are you happy with your current results? What are your goals and what are your objectives? What are you working towards in 2017? How are you going to measure your return on investment? And let me back up and talk about that a minute longer. When we talk about return on investment, it's something so important. It's something we spend a lot of time talking about. And if you've been on webinars with us before, you've heard it from us a lot. But when I'm talking about return on investment, notice I didn't say how are you going to calculate or measure your return on money, because your investment is so much bigger than money. You have two resources available to you in this world. Everybody has two resources, time and money. We all have the same amount of time. We all have different amounts of money, but we have the same amount of time. And when we're looking at our business, it is a constant decision. You're making hundreds of decisions, whether they be conscious or subconscious, every single day about how you are going to trade time for money and money for time. Those are the currencies that we work in our culture today. So you've got to look at investment as both of those things. You can invest time into your business, into your marketing, and earn a monetary return, hopefully, if you do it well. Or you can invest money into it to earn a time return, because you're not spending the time you would have, and earn a money return. But you've got to balance that. And different things are right for different people based on the size of your business and where you're trying to go. For some of you, investing your time into it is the right thing to do, and we really try to empower and equip you to do that. For some of you, investing your money into it to free up your time is the right thing to do. So you've got to think about that equation and say, what does that look like for me in my business? And how do I go through that process? And then what marketing methods are right for you? We're going to talk about some big picture marketing methods today. We already have talked about some big picture marketing methods. But what's right for you and how you execute them is a little bit different for everybody. Everybody needs to execute those things a little differently than the others. Pause. I have to take a few coffee breaks here and there. I am fighting a cold, so I'm hoping my voice will stay with us for this whole time. So do you know the answers to these questions? Have you really sat down and spent the time figuring out the answers to these questions? As you're planning your 2017, it's going to be an important part of it. And as you're laying out your plan, as you're laying out your marketing strategy, we're going to help you lay out that big picture strategy for your year as a whole, some things you need to accomplish. Now, there's going to be a lot of gaps you've got to fill in, things you need to accomplish on top of what we're going to talk about today. And then from there, you need to take that big picture strategy, that big picture marketing plan, and turn that into a quarterly plan, a quarterly strategy to say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this, do this, do this. And then on a quarterly basis, how am I going to execute that? And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we move throughout our time together. But as we get into that, we want to make sure we understand the 5 stages of travel. Google released a study back in 2011 that detailed these 5 stages, and it's kind of a duh thing once you hear it. But what they found through their study was that the travel consists of 5 stages: dreaming, planning, booking, experiencing, remembering. Yet in our experience, the majority of travel marketers spend the majority of their time and energy marketing the booking phase. And in doing that, they ignore the dreaming and planning phase. So as you're working that, you have to realize that the majority of time is spent in the dreaming and planning stage. Very, very little time is spent in the booking stage. So that doesn't mean you don't market the booking stage. That doesn't mean you don't have calls to action for the booking stage. Of course, you have to have those things. But it does mean, as you're planning your marketing, you have to think about the customer, the traveler that's in the dreaming phase, that's in the planning phase, that's in the remembering phase of their vacation, that's in the experiencing phase. How do you market to someone who's currently experiencing their vacation? The best part of it, the experience part, right? Actually, it's not. Statistics tell us another part is the best part of the vacation phase, but that's a whole different topic. But you've got to be thinking about this, and I want to establish a common language for you as you're thinking about your marketing plan to think about these 5 stages of travel and being able to build strategies that address these things. So we're going to dive in and we're going to talk a little bit about email marketing. We're going to hit this pretty high level. How many of us are sending email campaigns at least monthly? I probably should have set this up as a poll for you guys. We've got another poll coming up later, but probably should have set this up as a poll so we can get a feel. But as I travel and I speak and we do this live, about 5% of people raise their hand for this question, which means 95% of us are not sending email campaigns at least monthly. And we recommend really doing it twice per month because it helps us stay top of mind and relevant. It helps us turn past guests into repeat guests and to earn referrals from past guests. So there's a lot of advantages to email marketing. And there's a lot of advantages that can't be measured by traditional marketing metrics. We look at traditional marketing metrics. We look at things like open rates and click-through rates, and those are very, very important. But there's a lot of value we can't measure just looking at those things. Top-of-mind awareness, for example. That's a very expensive thing to try to measure. Companies like Coca-Cola, companies like Apple, they can spend money to measure top-of-mind awareness and figure that out. Companies like you and I, we can't spend money to figure those things out, so we have to rely on some of those other metrics. But we also need to not lose sight of important metrics like top-of-mind awareness. And as we're sending those two campaigns, we typically recommend two things. We recommend one that's a bit more sales-oriented. It's specials, it's packages, it's certain offers. For example, Cyber Monday was this week. That's a very special-oriented, sales-oriented email. The other one that we would typically recommend is to share relevant content and reasons to visit. Give your peak season guests reasons to come visit in shoulder season. Tell them about the Christmas Lights Festival that you've got coming up. Tell them about what's going on in your market this December. Tell them about the New Year's Eve parties in the area, or maybe the New Year's Eve party you're throwing. Give them a reason to come visit you, and they will. But you can't assume they're just out there thinking about you. People are busier than they've ever been. They're not out there thinking about you unless you're putting yourself in their path. You're creating top-of-mind awareness and giving them reasons to come visit you in seasons they may not otherwise come. Maybe you're at the beach and everybody comes during the summer and you're sold out. That's awesome. That's easy. It's not easy. It's not easy to service, but it's easy to market. It's hard to market that in the winter. So you've got to come up with reasons for people to come visit. And some destinations or DMOs do a great job at this. They have festivals, they have events, they have things happening. But if you're in a city or a market that doesn't, you are that. Like, you have to be that if you want to do a great job of getting people to come visit. And then as you're looking at that, track traffic and open rate. We talked about that. I said it's important, but don't lose sight of top-of-mind awareness and the bigger picture value of email marketing. We also know that email marketing drives branded search. We see an increase in branded search consistently after we do email campaigns, because a lot of people use web-based email these days, and they'll just drop your name in a branded search, but the email is what drove them to do that. There's lots of things email drives that are hard to measure, but you've got to have a plan for being able to compare campaign to campaign and figure out what's working for you and what's not. And as we look at that, we'd encourage you to set the goal to achieve a 10% click-through monthly from your database. See those spikes in email marketing traffic consistently. Our average is about 4% per campaign, and we typically send 2 campaigns per month for customers. So that gets us to about 8%. So the goal we've set for you is a bit above that of 10%, but go after it. Go after 10% of your database clicking through. And if you have 10,000 people in your database and you're not doing email marketing, that means you're missing out on somewhere between 500 and 1,000 visits a month from this source. For most of you, 500 to 1,000 visits a month is a lot of visits. And you're leaving that opportunity on the table if you're not taking action on email marketing. And we know 95% of you aren't taking action on email marketing. So go after this. This is a huge opportunity for you. All right, let's talk about blogging, which is what is now really called content marketing. Blogging is what it used to be called. It's now more called content marketing, but the platform it's done on is really your blog. So all kind of the same thing. There's, of course, nuances to each, but to keep it from getting too technical, we're going to be blogging at least weekly. Now, if I really look at the room, I would bet this is less than 5% of us. But you have to be committed to this. As we talked about earlier, if we want to succeed in the modern marketing world, if we want to succeed in the internet world that is controlled by Google and the other various search engines that operate much the same way, we have to be creating fresh content on a regular basis. Because people are asking Google the questions when they're dreaming and planning their trip. If they're dreaming and planning their trip and they're asking Google the questions, we want to be the people they find with the answer. Because if we're the people they find with the answer, we earn the opportunity to be the one who earns that booking. That's how we can fight the OTAs. It's one of the ways we can fight the OTAs and the third-party directories. Because I guarantee you that OTAs, online travel agents, if you're not familiar with the acronym, or third-party directories, can never be an authority on your destination the way you're an authority on your destination. They can never commit the resources to creating content the way you can create content about your destination. They have to cover destinations worldwide, and you have to cover your destination. So from a relevancy perspective, content you create should be a lot more relevant for your destination than content an OTA creates. And this is one of the ways, the most important ways, you can win the OTA battle. But you've really got to commit to this. And you have to go after this with a tenacity because it is not easy. It is a very time-consuming process, and it's constantly changing. It's not just about posting a weekly blog. It's not just about making sure that it's relevant to your customers with good information. It has to be well written. It has to be all these things. We write over 500 blogs a month as a company, and we analyze the performance of all of those blogs to figure out what's working and what's not, and then coach our team on how to create content that's more like what's working and less like what's not. If you don't have that type of data, it's really difficult to do this really, really well. Writing blogs and posting them is better than not, but it takes a lot. It takes a lot of effort and energy to really figure out what's working and what's not to be able to get you where you want to go. It's not just about choosing the right keyword. It's not just about having your blog set up the right way. It's not just about writing the right content. It's not just about having it the right length or selecting the right photos or using the right link structure. There's so much that goes into doing this and doing this well. But starting this process is better than not doing it at all. And what we have found as we've looked at this, and other people have, this is actually a research study on my HubSpot, is that websites who are blogging weekly, on average, get 55% more traffic than those that don't. 55% more traffic. So using that, just committing to this part of your strategy, theoretically, would move you into this class, and would theoretically mean you would see a 55% increase in traffic if you commit to this over a period of time and do it well. Now, it's not quite that easy, right? There's a lot of other things that go into making that work, as we've talked about. But starting down that road, the websites that blog regularly, blog weekly, see 55% more traffic than those that don't. So we'd encourage you to be publishing weekly blogs on keyword-specific content. So here's an example of one. Weekend getaways near Cincinnati. If you live in Cincinnati, Lord knows you're looking to get out of town on the weekend. And we look at drive markets around our customers and say, okay, what drive markets are we reaching from this destination? And when I say drive market, we're typically looking at about a 3-hour on average drive, sometimes a bit more, sometimes a bit less, depending how remote it is. But that's what we're looking for. And this is one of the many strategies we use from a content perspective to be able to target that. So you'll see this keyword was something we went after for this customer. And they were ranked, they bounce around. That's one of the things Google does a little bit. But when we took this screenshot, they were ranked 4th in the overall rankings. And we wrote this blog back in 2014. So this blog is over 2 years old now. But it's still performing incredibly well. And I know that screenshot's a bit small, but you can see that chart of how much traffic this one blog got. That screenshot that's there is representative of about a 10-month period. And in that 10 months, it got 3,193 people that visited it. So 3,193 people discovered this destination because of this blog. 3,000 people that didn't know they existed found this blog. 3,000 people who were looking for a weekend getaway near Cincinnati found our customer because of this blog. And the same can be true for you. You can have people discovering you, your property, your company, when they're planning a trip. Sometimes they don't know where they're going, as in this case, they know where they are, and they want to get away. Sometimes they do know where they're going. And you've got to be thinking about both of those things, both of those travelers, and understanding how people look and how people book. Figure out what content you need to be creating to support your overall strategy. And as we do this, we'd encourage you to set the goal to drive 750 visits a month from blogging. Most of you, if you look at your analytics, won't see hardly any traffic coming in from blogging because you're not doing it or you're not doing it well. But we want you to set the goal and go after it to get 750 visits a month from blogging. And as you do that, know it's going to take 3 to 6 months to even start gaining traction. So be patient. Once somebody starts, the majority of the time they quit. And we think Google knows that too. Google knows you're going to quit. So they don't reward you for 3, 6 months, depending on your quality of your site and some other factors. It can be even longer. But if you stick that out time and time again, in the second 6 months of doing this, you'll get good traction and you'll start seeing traffic from it if you're doing it properly. And in your second year, you'll outperform your first year, hands down, every single time we've seen that happen. But you've got to stick with it. Now think about that. 6 months of weekly blog posts. That's like 25, 26 blogs at 500 to 700 words, taking an average of 4 to 6 hours per post. If you're a good quality writer and you're doing good research, you're talking 150 hours that you've invested into this strategy. It better work for you, but you've got to stick it out. That's the type of thing we're talking about here. If you can't commit to that time range, you can't commit to investing those hours, don't even start. Because back to return on investment we talked about earlier, you have those two resources, time and money, and you've got to figure out in your business what's the smartest way to be able to invest those limited resources that you have. So we'll touch on social media here a little bit. Social media, as we travel and speak and look at it, and I ask the question, how many of us have active Facebook pages? Almost the entire room will raise their hand. But if we think about that and we look at the overall success from a marketing perspective, social media has the lowest ROI. So as we talk and travel and speak on it, the majority of people are spending their limited resources in the area that has the lowest ROI. So in 2017, if nothing else, I'd say flip what you're doing. Spend less time on social media, not no time, spend less time on social media, and spend more time in other areas. If you're crushing it in other areas, then maybe spend more time in social media. But until then, you need to be really thinking about and having a strategy to grow this part of your strategy. And if we look at that, how many of us are growing at 5 to 10% per month? Because if we have a page but it's not growing, what's the point, right? I mean, a good social media following should be growing, yet very few are. Most grow at 5 to 10% per year. We're talking about growing at 5 to 10% per month. So you've got to set a goal for yourself and build a plan to go after it. Here's a quick example of one way we've been able to do that, an example of how we're using our blog content in social media to leverage that and create success. So in this example, it's a property we work with, a boutique hotel we work with in the Poconos, in the Lehigh Valley area, so just south of the Poconos. And we created the content, 10 of the most fascinating historic homes in the Lehigh Valley. Great content, lots of search traffic for it, posted that to social media and reached 11,000 people with that post. Of those 11,000 people, had 166 engagements and 529 link clicks, or excuse me, 529 post clicks. Of that, 472 actually went back to our website. So with this content that linked back to our blog, which is designed well to convert visitors into leads and leads into bookings, our brand reached 11,000 people, 166 liked it, and 472 people ended up going back to the website to read this blog. And of course, the Sayre Mansion is one of the 10 most fascinating historic homes in Lehigh Valley, and now you can come stay there because it's been converted into an absolutely beautiful boutique hotel. So great opportunity for you to be able to showcase your properties, the things that make you unique, and create that content. Now, you may not have a fascinating historic home in your inventory, or that may not be you, but you've got your own story to tell. And you can think about those things that are going to get attention and bring people back to you. And it also helps keep your edge rank high, which is going to help your other content, your other posts, get out there and reach more people. So again, set the goal to grow at 5 to 10% per month. Make your social media following growth chart look like this, because that's what we want to see for you. That's the audience you're building to be able to market to in the future. If we didn't have a lot of people following the Sayre Mansion, we couldn't have reached 11,000 people with a social media post. So let's talk about search engine optimization a little bit. We talked about it for a few minutes before, but I want to reconnect on it here. I think search engine optimization is quickly becoming one of the most misinformed pieces of an overall marketing strategy. And that's because it's changing drastically every single day. A lot of people are claiming that SEO or search engine optimization is dying, when in reality it's changing and people aren't keeping up. So what I would tell you is to not settle for mistruths, not settle for false information that it is dying and that it's okay that your traffic is down or flat year over year, but instead set a goal and figure out a way to help you achieve that goal. Figure out a way to create the content you need to succeed. Because if 98% of people aren't creating content, that probably means the competitors in your marketplace aren't doing this well. And if you start doing it well, it gives you a tremendous opportunity to differentiate yourself from Google's perspective in your marketplace. And if you differentiate your company in Google's eyes, they will reward you with rankings and traffic that follow that. And if they reward you, you will get in the path of more travelers. You will have more eyeballs on your properties, you'll have more people checking you out, and you'll be earning more business. It's just a natural process. It's how those things flow. But you have to be committed to doing it. It's not something that's going to happen on its own. So as we look at that, we've got to be looking at what Google is changing. It's the days of the major algorithm updates and them getting names are for the most part over. We still see that happening a little bit. We still hear a little bit about algorithm updates and so forth. But in reality, maybe a year and a half ago, time flies, so I'm not sure, it might be 2 years ago now, Google made a change that they, instead of making these massive algorithm updates, they were going to make smaller incremental changes on an almost daily basis, which is a big deal for a lot of reasons. Because one, you won't see a webinar from us, you won't hear about it in the news to signify to you, hey, something's changing with Google, I should go look at my Google Analytics to figure out what's going on and if I've been affected positively or negatively, as we talked about earlier. Now they're making almost daily changes, and you've got to be checking your analytics regularly, or you might get affected negatively or positively and not even know it if you're not checking your Google Analytics on a regular basis. So you've got to really be honed in on that. It has to be part of the rhythm of managing your business to figure out what's working and what's not, and what role your content strategy plays as a part of that. We talked there about it going hand in hand with your blogging strategy, and we absolutely believe that. If you're working with an SEO company and they haven't talked about the role that blogging or content creation plays in your SEO success, you're living in a search world, or they're living in a search world, and by your relationship, then you are living in a search world that existed about 5 years ago, and I highly doubt is ever going to come back again. So you're working and paying for a strategy that's very, very out of date. And that's why some people say SEO is dead, when in reality it's just that it's changed and they haven't kept up. So you've got to think about that. You have to build this as part of your strategy for 2017, that SEO and blogging go hand in hand, and that you have to have a game plan to succeed in both of these areas, or you won't succeed in either of these areas. And then as we do that, we encourage you to set the goal to grow or increase by 20% year over year. Consistently, our customers see about 25 to 40% growth in search engine traffic in their first year, which means that there's a tremendous amount of opportunity for you to make their experience similar growth. Let's turn our eye a little bit to analytics tracking. We talked about this quite a bit at the beginning. We talked about some questions you need to be asking yourself at the beginning. But as a part of your marketing strategy, we'd encourage you that you need to be in your analytics on a regular basis. And when I say regular, I mean at least monthly, but ideally weekly. Or even better yet, you've got a great dashboard created and you're checking that daily. It's one of the things we train our staff to do. They create a dashboard for all their customers, and they check that first thing in the morning every day to make sure things are going well, which enables us to catch anything that's not before it becomes a bigger issue. So if you're managing your own marketing, you need to be doing that same thing. You need to create a Google Analytics dashboard of the key performance indicators, the things that matter most to you, the things you feel like drive your business. And at a glance, you need to log in and check those. You could also have an email triggered to come to you daily. And Google Analytics will email you every day a report that you can create inside there that will give you that information. But either way you go get it, you've got to go get this information and review it to know that things are working. And understand that 99% of the times you check it, everything's going to be fine. But what we're trying to do is prevent that 1% of the time from costing us business. That 1% of the time from something going poorly and us missing it. Or, even better yet, on the positive side of that coin, us seeing a spike in traffic and asking the question, why did we have that spike? Diving deeper, figuring it out, and then saying, oh, that worked really, really well. We need to do more of that in our marketing strategy to drive more growth. We have to understand where traffic and bookings are coming from as a part of that process. And understanding that you've got to look at that with phone versus online. I know a lot of us get a lot of phone bookings, so we need to be thinking about that as a part of it as well. And as I talked about, looking for things that are costing us business, any red flags, any reasons we might be down. So flipping that default tracking and analytics to be able to figure out what sources am I down in business this year. And if you're working with a marketing company, you should be leaning on them to lead this conversation with you. You shouldn't have to be a Google Analytics expert. They should be tracking this on a regular basis and able to lead a conversation with you about this and delivering some type of report on a monthly basis for you that has this information summarized for you in it in a way that's meaningful and beneficial for you. But you have to commit to being able to do this. And then you have to understand and track your return on your investment as well. Understand that marketing is an investment in the growth of your business or an investment in the growth of yourself. And one of the things that we talk a lot about is that return on time. It's very difficult to measure return on time. I was talking with somebody the other day, and they really got it. They got it before I even brought it up. But I said, you know, you've got a smaller company than we typically work with. So in your case, I don't think we'd be able to hit our goal, which is to achieve a 200 to 300% return on your investment. I just don't think we'd get there. Your company's too small. And they looked at me and said, I don't care if we get to 200 to 300%. If you get to 100%, if you take marketing off of my plate, because this operator was doing their own marketing, and you pay for yourself, aka you get to 100% ROI, with my free time as the owner of this company, I can go grow this company to get my 200 to 300% ROI. And I'll have a higher quality piece of life because I don't really love doing this marketing thing, and I get frustrated because I feel like I'm not an expert. That is verbatim what they told me at a conference 2 weeks ago. And I'm like, wow, you get this thing. And while that's a unique situation because their company is a bit small, or ideally, we'd like to be able to deliver both. We'd like to deliver a 200 to 300. And then the return on time, you've got to look at both sides of that equation. And if you're going to do something different in 2017, you're going to try something you've never tried it, and make sure that you have a plan for that. So we've challenged you on a lot of things in 2017, action in 2017, but don't wait to start. Don't wait till 2017 to start. You need to start now. You need to take in your marketing to get there, to figure those things out. Take action today. We'd encourage you to request a free Google Analytics. It's something we want to make available to you to help you get on that road, to be able to get your questions answered and figure out your plan. And hopefully this will work for us and you'll be able to request that. But what are your highest performing traffic sources? Where have you lost traffic this year? What do you need to do differently in 2017? Those are and it's something that we make available for you for free, just as an added value for the people that come to this webinar. So I encourage you to take advantage of that. The poll should be popping up on your screen. If you could help us out by voting in that poll, that would be awesome. Yes, and we'll follow up with you and get you that free Google Analytics. Now, again, we're here to help you with how this is in Q4. To know more about how Q4 Launch can help me in 2017, check that box. We'll make that available for you as well. And we'll we'll just contact you directly to figure out how can we help you in 20. We need to get to a certain percent. Complete that poll. Get a few more responses in there. Still see those coming in. We'll close that out here in about 5 seconds. Awesome. We will go ahead and close that poll and keep things moving along here. Awesome. Good deal. Thank you for those of you that voted in that. We'll keep moving along. So the next thing we want to do here, we've got a few minutes left, is hit on Q&A. So make sure that we answer questions. I've seen a few questions pop in the chat panel as we've been moving throughout our time. If you have a question that has come up, please do use the chat panel to ask that. Or if you had an audio issue on your side, please let me know that and we'll answer your question as well. All right, first question here from Mary. I've always had a hard time remembering how to get to my Google Analytics, trying to pull it up now. What do you recommend? Great question, Mary. First of all, if you're having trouble getting to it, I would just bookmark it. Just create a bookmark and then set a recurring calendar appointment so that you use that to remind yourself on a regular basis to do it. And if you access it on a regular basis, you won't have problems getting into it anymore because it will just become routine for you. It's when you don't go in it frequently enough that you don't have time. And that's an indicator for us as well. Somebody's like, well, I don't know my password. It's like, well, I'm guessing you haven't been in there in a while if you can't remember what your password is. But you've got to commit to that. So bookmark it, set the recurring calendar appointment, and then, of course, you can save passwords as well if you're on a computer that's yours and it's private and all those things. Hopefully that was helpful for you there, Mary. A question from Kara. What would you consider a third-party directory? Kara, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of third-party directories out there that are a part of the mix. I mean, and there's a line blurring between third-party directories and OTAs now. That line is changing a lot. But HomeAway, VRBO, they started as third-party directories. Now they're really becoming online travel agents. Bedandbreakfast.com, vacationrentals.com, really if you think about anywhere you go and you list your property and people find it and then they come and they submit an inquiry or they find you, that's a directory. Anywhere people can book online, like an Expedia or an Airbnb or a site like that, that's an online travel agent. Booking.com, online travel agent. So that's how you distinguish between those two and understanding where your business is coming from in that mix. Question here from Bill. Excuse me. Should we join Airbnb? It's a tough question, Bill. Very specific to your situation. I mean, they definitely fall on that online travel agent part of the picture and your strategy as far as a marketing perspective goes. Airbnb is really strong in urban markets. They're not as strong in other markets. So if you're in an urban market, Bill, it could be a great opportunity for you. One of the things we do like about Airbnb from a marketing cost perspective is it's performance-based. So there's no cost to join, and then you pay a relatively low percentage when you get the booking. That's great. One of the things we don't like about Airbnb is that they're the merchant of record, meaning that that the customer's relationship is with Airbnb, not with you. So if they have any issues, they complain to Airbnb, and Airbnb can pull that money back out of your account in the flip of a hat. And Airbnb consistently has a history of siding with the guest over siding with the host. We've heard a lot of horror stories about people taking big bookings. They get them through Airbnb, and that money gets pulled back out of their account because the guest isn't happy about one thing or another, and they've grown so fast. Training is very difficult when you're growing at that pace, and the person may, reward them 100% refund, and they've left your place a mess or whatever else, and you're stuck holding the bag. So there are definite pros and cons, and you've got to weigh all that to be able to make that decision for your business, as well as what's the rest of your marketing strategy look like? Where are you getting business? So lots to go into that decision, Bill. Obviously, I can't answer that for you today. I'll hopefully give you a few things to think about to figure out if it's a good fit for you. Well, that's all the questions we have in our chat panel today. If you didn't get a chance to vote in that poll, you can definitely email us, and we'd be happy to get you information on the free Google Analytics analysis. My email address is there on the screen. My phone number is there as well. Be happy to get in touch with you and get you more information. Thanks, everybody, for coming today. We hope you had a great Thanksgiving, and we look forward to seeing you on our next webinar. Have a great rest of your day.